are you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me again on my learning block. Well, today it's time to continue this process of multiplication. Now, so far your child is grouping, your child is understanding arrays, and your child is now understanding that multiplication is the process of grouping numbers. That's great. And now it's time to move on to that fluency aspect. Because at the end of the day, we want your child to be able, you want your child to be able to have some fluency in multiplication. Now, before we start this, you know how I am, and it's going to be a continuation. If you ever hear someone use the word memorize with multiplication, memorize your multiplication facts, run in the opposite direction. Memory is great, and it's great to have a strong memory, but with regards to multiplication, you want to have an understanding, or you want your child to have an understanding of multiplication and what the process means and how to do it. And you also want your child to understand the rules. So stay away from memory. It's good to recall facts, but to memorize them, not so much. Now, today we're going to learn about how to teach the fluency aspect of multiplying 4's. Now, 4's are fun to me, and they're fun for many others, simply for the fact that it's taking on something that your child already knows and is just continuing that pattern. And the pattern is multiplying 2's. Now, I'll go forward and telling you about that a little more in a second. But first, let's think about what it means to multiply 4's. All right, when you're working with your child and they see a problem such as 4 times 5, right? So they see, what do I have? 4 times 5. All right, what you're basically doing, or what your child is basically doing, is they're putting 4 into groups of 5, right? They're taking 4 groups of 5. So it can be, let's work on shapes. So we have a pentagon, right? We have 1. I know my pentagon is terrible, and I like to think of it as a house. So I have 2, 3, 4, and that's 4 groups of 5, because a pentagon, as we all know, has 5 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. 4 groups of 5, as we see, equals 20. But also the inverse of this problem, 4 groups of 5, I can also have 5 groups of 4. So that's like saying there's 5 dogs. And how many legs will there be if each dog has 4 legs? As you and I both know, it's 20. These are some of the ways you want your child to understand multiplication. It's the grouping process of numbers. Now, what about all this talk of building fluency? Because this is what you watched the video about, right? When you're building fluency with multiplying 4's, one thing and the first thing you should know to instruct your child is that when you multiply 4, the product is going to be an even number. Now, what does that mean? Even number means that you're going to get 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8 in the ones place, right? So if you look at 0, 4 times 0 equals 0, 4 times 1 equals 4, 4 times 2, 8, 4 times 3 is 12. You see the 2 is in the ones place. 4 times 4, 16, 4 times 5, 0, 4, 8, 2, 6. There's actually a pattern that just continues to go. But what you want your child to understand is whenever they multiply number times 4, they're going to get an even product. And how does that help? Well, let's say your child's taking a test and they get 4 times 8. Now, they could put it in groups, or they could use arrays, or something could happen with their counting and their one-to-one correspondence, and they say, well, 4 times 8 equals 33. Now, if they understand that any number times 4 is an even number, they'll see 33 and say, hold on, something's wrong here, because 33 is not even, and then they'll be able to work it out a little more. And it's sort of a self-check or self-correction. They'll realize that, hey, I counted one more, and it should be 32. So when you're teaching your child how to multiply by 4's, it's important to understand this process right here. And when you're multiplying 4's, there is a rule, and the rule is any number times 4 is always double the number and then double the number twice. So what does that mean? Well, if you look at the example shown, I have 3 times 4. And so what I'm going to do as I show you down here, I'm trying to get the pen right. As I show you right here, and I have 3 times 4. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to double the number 3 2 times. I'm going to double the number, then find out what I get, and then I'm going to double that number. So 3 times 2, as you see it right here, 3 times 2, what does that equal? 6, right? And then I'm going to double that number again. So now what is 6 times 2? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 12. So I've doubled the number twice. You double the number once, 3 times 2, right here. And then whatever the product is, you double that number again. So 6 times 2, and you get 12. Therefore, 3 times 4 equals 12. Now, don't worry. There's another way of doing it. If your child gets to that point where they're like, oh, the double the number and double the number, it can get difficult. If they understand their subtraction, if they have a strong ability to subtract, then they can use another rule that also works every time when you use 4's. And what you do is you want to multiply first by 5 and then subtract whatever number there is. So in this one, I have 4 times 4. What I'm going to do, and now you're going to look at this one right here, I'm going to first multiply by 5, and then I'm just going to subtract 4. So 5 times 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, right? I have 20. And I'll write it right here so you can see. And then I'm going to subtract 4. 19, 18, 17, 16. Therefore, 20 minus 4 equals 16. Therefore, 4 times 4 equals 16. Because what I did first was I multiplied by 5's. And it works all the time. I'll show you with 4 times 6. If I have 4 times 6, I'm going to first multiply by 5, and then I'm going to subtract whatever number there is. And I see right here, this number should be 6, and it says 5. Please look past that one. So I have 4 times 6. I'm going to first multiply 6 times 5, and then I'm going to subtract 6. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Right? And now it's time to subtract these 6 fingers that are up. 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24. Therefore, my answer to 6 times 4 is 24. Now, great, that works. But what if your child wants, again, to use the double the number, then double the number? What you're going to do is you're going to go right here again with the 4 times 6. I have 6 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12. And then I can go 12 times 2, or I can just add it to itself, because anytime you multiply a number times 2, you're just doubling that number. So if they're unsure what 12 times 2 is, then just go 12 plus 12. 2 plus 2 is 4. 1 plus 1 is 2. Therefore, I have 24. As you see, the product stays the same. Now, that's multiplying by 4's, and those are some of the rules you need to remember to show your child. Remember, any number times 4 is just doubling the number twice. You double the number, then you double that number. I say double the number twice, but what you're doing is doubling the product of the first time. Then you can also show them that they can multiply by 5's, and that gives them something, both those 2's and 5's that they're pretty strong with. That gets them multiplying by 5's and then subtracting the number or whatever number they have. Again, thank you for joining me on my learning block. Keep learning with me.